Hi, everyone. My name's Deb, and I'm a social worker here at the Community Health Center in Lanark. And I am going to share with you a presentation today that I usually do in person or that I've done on video. I'm just going to walk you through the slides. So I'm just sharing my screen right now. The presentation is about stress and chronic disease, how stress presents itself, and some things you can do about it. All right, so let's go to the next slide. The goals for the workshop are to define stress, look at what it means, its impacts on our health, some signs that you're feeling stressed, and some coping strategies. So how do we define stress? One way is to say that it's the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or a response. And so there are lots of different, in the image, there are lots of different words that we use sometimes in association with stress, or they're symptoms of us being stressed. And those can be physical, mental, emotional, lots of different ways that it shows up in the body. We've all perhaps heard of the fight, flight, or freeze response to stress. And we're going to dig in a little bit regarding what that can look like as we experience it. So what happens in the body when you're having that fight or flight response? Actually, or freeze response. That's another response that we don't sometimes talk about. So the amygdala in our brain is the fear response center. It's like the smoke alarm, and it reacts to a threat. It sends out cortisol, adrenaline, to help us either run away from the fearful thing, the thing that's scaring us or causing us stress, or stay and fight it, right? So when we stay and fight, the blood flows to our large muscles and allows us that energy. So that can involve, our pupils dilating. Sometimes our mouth can get really dry, rapid, fast breathing. Our heart is just pounding. Our muscles get really tense. Our digestion kind of slows down because the body is more focused on surviving than digesting. Sweat can happen as well, and other symptoms that we'll get to. The hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system, as I said, and adrenaline gets released. That's like putting the gas pedal on for your nervous system. All of those things on the left-hand side of the screen happen because the sympathetic nervous system ramps it up. And the adrenal cortex releases cortisol for continued alertness. Really important. So what's really going on when we're under stress? This is similar to the last slide, but a few different symptoms. Sometimes we get a bit nauseous. That's one that was on the other slide. We can get lightheaded or dizzy. The heart can beat rapidly. Breathing can be very shallow, right? Sometimes we have bladder weakness. Sometimes people tell me they shake when they're stressed or having that nervous system response, that fear-based response. Increase blood flow to hands and legs, as I said, so we can get ready to fight or flee. Cortisol is a stress hormone. We need it to be able to respond to stress. It's a life-saving adrenal hormone. It's, helps us regulate a certain balance. We call that homeostasis, just a self-regulation and stabilization. So that involves it helps regulate blood sugar. For those of you who are coming to this workshop having had experience with diabetes, it helps regulate fat, protein, carbohydrate metabolism, to maintain that blood glucose that we need. It also helps regulate the anti-inflammatory actions, blood pressure, heart and blood vessel tone and contraction, and that central nervous system activation I was talking about earlier. So really important things that cortisol does. However, when we're under a lot of stress for a long period of time, and when you're dealing with chronic illness, often there's stress, lots of changes and things you have to adapt to. You might have higher and more prolonged levels of cortisol flowing through your body. So these are some of the symptoms that can occur when you've got higher levels of cortisol. So we can be foggy, so impaired cognitive performance, we might say, but that's another way of saying you're just kind of foggy. Your thyroid function may not be great. Your blood sugar might be imbalanced, hyperglycemia. It might impact your bone density. Certainly sleep, you know, when cortisol is meant to help us respond to stress, it's kind of a stimulant, right? So if we have a lot of it pumping through our body, it takes a while to get it out, of course your sleep's going to be impacted. It might decrease your immune system, might impact your ability to heal from wounds. It might increase abdominal fats, so associated with risk of heart disease, strokes, higher levels of those LDLs and lower levels of the HDL, so those cholesterol levels, elevated blood pressure as well, and decreased muscle mass over the long term. You know, we all get shots of cortisol all the time. It helps us survive, but over the long term, they can have real impacts. So the next slide talks about the signs of stress, you know, and these are different for all of us. Different day, you might have different presenting issues. These are some of the things that can show up when you're feeling stressed. The physical ones, you know, a headache, a backache, muscle tension, fatigue, or a lack of energy. When you've got that nervous system response showing up a lot, that's exhausting. And so it makes sense that you would be a bit tired. As we said before, nausea, sometimes cold hands or feet, sweaty hands, dry mouth. A lot of these are the same as, you know, the stuff we've talked about before. Can impact fertility or sex drive. It can lead to digestion problems. You can have heartburn, palpitations, a whole myriad of possibilities. Psychologically, what happens when we're feeling stressed? We can have an increase in symptoms of anxiety or depression. Might be mood swings. You might feel really restless, you know, unable to sit still. Dissatisfaction in work, can feel really overwhelmed or forgetful. We might be worrying a lot, which can be, you know, similar to how we describe anxiety, or real trouble focusing. How do we act? How do we act when we're stressed? The behavioral impacts of stress. For some people, we overeat or undereat, or maybe we just want to eat junk food, not the good stuff. If you're a smoker or you've recently quit smoking, there might be an increase in how much you're smoking. There also might be an increase in your alcohol or other substance use when you're feeling stressed. You might act more impulsively. You know, you don't think things through quite as well. You might feel more isolated. Sometimes when we're stressed, we aren't comfortable telling other people. And so it leads us to kind of turn inward, which can lead to a whole host of other issues. So we can be agitated, sometimes aggressive. Some people get really aggressive when they're stressed. We can feel really unproductive at times when we're stressed as well. So lots of ways that stress shows up. It's a snippet of a list. So it might be different for you. You know, on a given day, a certain stressor might cause you to feel or act a certain way. And another time it may be different. So just be aware of that as well. So the kind of triggers for stress and anxiety, what kind of things bring those responses I've just described on? It's not limited to this list, but it kind of captures a lot of the stuff. So any major life changes, work can do it, relationship difficulties, financial problems, being too busy, children, family, extended family, you know, people you're responsible for, you know, regardless of whether you're related to them or not, general health stuff, you know, transitions, those major life changes, but transitions can be a big one. And so what happens in the mind is that we really have a hard time with uncertainty. And I think recently throughout COVID, we've all been challenged because so much is uncertain. And it's right up in our faces every day. So that's been a real challenge for many of us. Sometimes when we're stressed, it leads to pessimism. So that kind of mixtape in your head that is always, you know, the negative self-talk, which is the next point. And then sometimes we just have unrealistic expectations. Many of us might be perfectionists, and we make it really hard for ourselves to get out of that loop. And so why is it important to know how stress impacts you? I want you to think about that. If we were in a group, we'd have a little discussion about it. Not only that, but then what you can do about it. What are some things that are helpful for you? So let's take a look at those. Mindfulness is a way of dealing with stress, and I can't actually play the video on this format as it is. However, down in the bottom, you'll see the YouTube link. You could cut and paste and find it. It's just a good synopsis about how mindfulness can be really helpful dealing with stress. Mindfulness is a form of meditation that is based on the present moment. It's about focusing your attention in a particular way on purpose, with curiosity and without judgment, kind of a fancy way of saying just focusing the attention. When I talk to younger kids about this, I say that mindfulness is a special way of paying attention. And often we use our senses to do that. You may think about a mindfulness of breath practice that you've seen people do in terms of meditation. There's some really great apps that you can get and use for free. There are some you can pay for that can guide you through some mindfulness practice. And there are great things on YouTube as well for free. There's lots of research that says it really is helpful for us in dealing with stress. It conditions the mind to really stay focused on the present moment. And so most of the time when we're experiencing stress, we're feeling stressed about something that happened in the past that we can't do anything about, or something coming up in the future. We spend a lot of time back there or up ahead. And so even developing a practice where you train your mind to just be present in the moment, notice when it wanders away, and then bringing the attention back to the present moment. If we were in a group, I might guide you through something like that. There's some great apps, and certainly at the end, there'll be some resources. And one of them is the Community Health Center number, or you can talk to your respiratory therapist about connecting with a counselor, or if you wanted to know more about mindfulness, your respiratory therapist could connect you with me, and I could send you some resources. So know that there are a lot of things out there that can be helpful. This is another piece about mindfulness, another video that I show in group that I'm not able to show here. So follow the link and check it out. I think it's really important to know what works for you, what allows you to slow things down a bit, be aware, notice what's coming up in your body or in your behavior or, mentally, and what can you do about it? It's hard to do something about it when you don't notice it coming up. So in terms of your mind, how to deal with stress and anxiety, one of the big things to work on is just acceptance, accepting things for what they are and understanding that you can't control everything. A great activity I like to do with people is to draw a circle. And within the circle, so say you're having a difficult time with anything. It could be making a decision. It could be a work, family, societal issue, the big stuff, the little stuff. And in the middle, you kind of list the things that are within your control. What is within your control about it? When COVID first hit, I was doing this a lot with people. And, some of the stuff within their control might be, taking care of myself, staying healthy, getting enough sleep, eating well, tapering my consumption of media, etc. And then on the outside of the circle, you think about all the things about this stressor in particular that are out of your control. And sometimes it really helps to hone in on, these are the things that I can control. And acceptance is a big part of that. That's a great activity. Sometimes doing your best, instead of aiming for perfection, to say, you know what, I'm not going to get the whole house clean today. And so why don't I just focus on this room? Or I may not get my room clean today, but maybe I'll focus on the laundry that's piling up in my room rather than, just do it all or nothing. We're really hard on ourselves as humans sometimes. Another thing you can do mentally is maintaining a positive attitude. That's really important for many things. And sometimes it's hard to do as you spiral into the stress cycle. Learning what triggers your anxiety or what brings on stress, right? And preparing for it. If you know tomorrow's going to be a really stressful day, maybe you have 2 appointments that you're concerned about and, somebody else is calling you. How are you going to manage that? And if you can plan ahead, maybe next time, not doing those 3 things on a given day. But if that's your reality, how are you going to, factor in a hot cup of tea, putting your feet up, maybe having a healthy lunch in between all that? And so the mind piece, the action piece is around, taking some deep breaths. So when I talked about that sympathetic nervous system response, the kind of antidote to that is the parasympathetic nervous system, that response that pushes the brake. If you were a car, if the sympathetic nervous system is the gas on that nervous system response, and all those racing heartbeats, sweating, all of those symptoms come up, the parasympathetic nervous system are the brakes. And the best way to bring that on is through the breath. Really taking some, not only deep inhales, longer exhales. That brings up that parasympathetic nervous system response. Really powerful. It sounds simple, and there's lots online about that stuff. That's a really, really great way to not allow the stress to grow. Sometimes slowly counting to 10 or counting backwards from 10. For some people, it's about contributing to the community. So doing something that gives back. And that may not be out in the community right now because we're all limited in where we can go and what we can do. But maybe that's about, volunteering to do some paperwork or phone calls for an organization, or, any number of things. I know lots of community agencies or organizations that rely on volunteers are kind of changing what they expect from volunteers. So certainly reach out to an organization if you're interested. Sometimes taking a time out, and for some people that can be, a yoga practice. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's just some kind of self-care that's helpful for you. Maybe, for you, that is just about being outside and listening to the wind today. Or, I'm recording this on a really beautiful fall day. Maybe it's just going outside and feeling the heat on your face or on your back, just taking a moment. For some people, it's maybe getting help online, reaching out to a crisis line, or lots of counselors. Most counselors right now are doing things virtually. So either through video or through the phone. So if you think that counseling is something you'd like to address some of the stuff coming up for you, again, talk to the person facilitating this workshop who has put this workshop in your hands, and they can refer you to counseling services in Leonard County. And at the end, I'm going to just go over some of those as well. Talking to someone, as I said, in terms of counseling, or maybe it's a pastor or a priest or somebody within your faith community, for those of you who have a faith community, or it could be somebody within another community that you have. So other ways to deal with stress and anxiety as it comes up in your body, really limiting alcohol and caffeine. Alcohol is a depressant, right? So in the moment, it may seem like it kind of takes that nervous system down a notch, but long-term, it can really bring you down and have other health complications as well. Caffeine, if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety or stress is an issue, think about those stress responses I'd mentioned earlier. One of them is, a rapid heartbeat. Caffeine often causes, in most people, the heart to beat rapidly. So that can bring up a whole host of not only mental health responses in the body, in terms of feeling like the anxiety is growing, but also if you have heart issues, it can be problematic as well. So just being aware, being mindful of those things and what contains caffeine, etc. Eat really great balanced meals when possible, and know that they really help fuel the body. I talk to people a lot about their tank being empty, and when you think about the things within that circle that you can control, diet is one of them. Even on a limited income, for sure, you can always find things that are perhaps better for you in the long run. Although I'm human, like all of you, we all have our weaknesses, right? So to be aware of that as well. And talk to a dietitian if you need more information about any of that stuff. Sleep is such an important thing. And often when you're experiencing stress, or you're someone who struggles with anxiety, your sleep is often interrupted. And there's lots of stuff you can do in terms of helping reduce that stress, and some of it could involve working with a counselor to help you with some of those responses. Exercise can often be linked to sleep. If you're getting out and moving, can be really helpful in combating stress. So, you know, I say to people, it doesn't have to be running a marathon. It can be a walk. It can be incorporating more physical activity into your daily life, standing more, doing more physical labor, gardening if you're able to, or just raking, you know, if you're not limited in terms of your chronic health issue. And I think the intentional exercise can be really good as well. Connection with other people, so important in terms of dealing with stress. When we're not feeling great, often for many of us, we tend to isolate. And when we isolate, that increases our low mood. And then we feel a bit anxious about having to go out and see that person because you haven't seen them in a while and you'll have to explain why you've been absent, etc. So connecting is just a really important part of everybody's health. You know, I say as humans, we're hardwired for connection. So don't undermine that. And if you're feeling lonely right now, reach out to someone in your circle and, you know, connect. This is just a fun overview of ways to cope with stress. It's fun. Some of it's, you know, maybe more appealing to you than others, but some good stuff here, and you can take your time with that. I'll just give you a minute to look. And finally, some other resources for you. At the Community Health Center in Lanark, we offer counseling to anybody within and around the community. You don't have to be a client who has a doctor or a nurse there. You don't even have to be a client there at all. You can just call the number here and tell them you'd like to see a counselor, and they put your name on a list. Someone calls you and arranges something. And we do some structured work around an issue that you would like to address. And we do our best. We're a small team, and we do our best to support you in the ways that you need it, or refer you to somebody who can if we aren't able to meet your needs. Lanark County Mental Health within Lanark County is a publicly funded mental health agency. They have a wide range of supports and services and groups. I would encourage you to call them if you have questions. You don't need a referral, although your doctor can refer you. They also offer psychiatric assessments if you qualify, and that has to be on a doctor's referral. They do lots of groups, and I understand they're doing a lot of groups online now, so they're great. Open doors for Lanark children and youth. So if you're someone who's under 18, under 17 really, and you're looking for some mental health support for yourself or for somebody else, somebody, you know, who is in your care, give them a call. They're offering lots of stuff virtually right now as well. So Lanark County Mental Health, 18 and up. Community Health Center in Lanark, 18 and up as well. And Open Doors for Lanark Children and Youth is 18 and under. And certainly if you have any questions, please talk to whoever your link is right now, and they can get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to share other resources with you. I hope you found this helpful. Best of luck in navigating what you're dealing with right now. Take care.